Ma'am, you need to step aside. Now. Ava froze, confusion flashing across her face. What? Why? Your passport isn't showing in our system. You can't board without proper documentation. That's not possible. I just handed it to you. I don't have it. Her chest tightened. You literally just checked it. I don't know what to tell you, ma'am. Maybe you misplaced it? Murmurs started in the line behind her. Ava's voice sharpened. I didn't misplace it. You had it in your hand. Where is it? Please step aside. You're lying. I saw you take it. The attendant kept her expression neutral. I never took your passport. Ava's frustration bubbled over. Then where is it? I don't know, ma'am. Have you checked your bag? Ava's fingers curled into fists. I don't need to. I saw you holding it. You must be mistaken. No, I'm not. Give it back. Ma'am, I don't have it. Let's not make this difficult. Ava's pulse pounded in her ears. The people behind her shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Just let them check, a man muttered. Ava turned sharply. Check what? She's the one who had it. The attendant sighed. Let's not cause a scene. Maybe she lost it. She looks nervous. Ava heard the whispers. She glanced around, searching for a sympathetic face, but found none. Just let them do their job, someone murmured. Ava swallowed hard. Is no one going to say anything? Silence. Some passengers turned away, pretending not to hear. Others pulled out their phones, recording from a safe distance. Her face burned. This isn't just about a lost passport. You all know that. Still, no one spoke. The attendant folded her arms. Ma'am, security is on the way. Please stay where you are. A uniformed officer approached. Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions. Ava exhaled sharply. Ask her. She had my passport. The attendant didn't flinch. I never did. The officer looked at Ava. Are you sure you didn't misplace it? Her breath caught. That's not what happened. We just want to check. No, you want to accuse me. Ma'am, if you cooperate, this will go faster. Faster for who? The attendant let out a soft sigh. She's been aggressive since I told her I didn't have it. Ava's stomach twisted. I'm not aggressive. I just want my passport. The officer glanced at his partner. We'll need to check your bag. You're searching for the wrong person. Standard procedure, ma'am. Ava clenched her jaw. For who? She stood still as her belongings were emptied, each item placed on the table in front of her. Did you find anything? She asked, voice tight. The officer exchanged glances with his partner. No, ma'am. Ava folded her arms. Then check her. Silence. The officer hesitated. Let's not escalate this. Ava let out a cold laugh. Right, only I get searched. Ava exhaled, forcing herself to stay calm. And then she saw it. A flicker of movement. A smug smile. Her eyes locked onto the attendant, who stood near a trash bin, fingers brushing against something small. Ava's breath caught. Did you just... The attendant turned away. Ava's heart pounded. She wasn't imagining things. The realization hit like a punch. This wasn't incompetence. It was deliberate. Her hands curled into fists. You took it. The attendant barely reacted. That's a serious accusation. I saw that. Ava's head snapped toward the voice. A man stood nearby, phone raised, her chest tightened. You did? He nodded. I recorded everything. Relief crashed over her. Send it to me. Already uploading. Ava straightened, her fear melting into something stronger. Good. Ava Mitchell doesn't lose. That's what they said in legal circles. A powerhouse in the courtroom, she had built her career dismantling injustice. Case after case, she exposed discrimination, forcing corporations and institutions to answer for their actions. But success came with a cost. She saw the way some judges looked at her, how opposing counsel underestimated her. It wasn't just about winning cases. It was about proving, over and over, that she belonged. And she was exhausted. But she wasn't stopping. You sure you can handle this, Mitchell? She heard it in law school, in courtrooms, in meetings. A question draped in doubt, never asked outright but always implied. The professors who scrutinized her more than her peers. The partners who assumed she was the assistant, not the attorney. The clients who looked surprised when she walked in. She had fought through it all. But some battles left scars, wounds that never fully healed, just faded into memory. This wasn't just another case. Ava stared at the file in her hands. A black man, wrongfully convicted, sitting in a foreign prison. His freedom depended on her. The weight of it settled on her shoulders, but it wasn't unfamiliar. She had carried responsibility like this before. This case wasn't about one man. It was about justice, about setting a precedent. She closed the file. She didn't have the luxury of fear, only action. And that started with this flight. "Step aside, ma'am." Ava sighed. TSA, pre-check, global entry. None of it mattered. She was still pulled aside, patted down, bags checked. Again, she kept her expression neutral, even when the agent inspected her ID twice. Even when the gate agent asked to see her boarding pass again, but not the man ahead of her. Just a routine check, they always said. Routine. She was used to it. That didn't make it any less infuriating. Ava clenched her jaw. These moments weren't random. They weren't accidents. Every extra screening, every skeptical glance, every unnecessary hurdle, it was a pattern. One she had seen her whole life. She had fought it in court. She had fought it in boardrooms. And now, as she stepped toward the gate, she prepared to fight it again. Because silence had never saved anyone. And she refused to be silent. Ava stepped forward, passport and boarding pass in hand. Focused, professional. The case ahead was all that mattered. The flight attendant, Kara, barely glanced at the white passengers ahead, her smile effortless, their documents checked in seconds. But when Ava approached, something shifted. Kara's fingers drummed against the counter. Her eyes lingered on the passport longer than necessary. A pause, just enough to be felt. Ava exhaled slowly. She had seen this play out before. Just get through it, ignore it, move on. But as Kara's gaze flickered to her ID again, Ava knew this wasn't random. Kara held Ava's passport up to the light, tilting it, inspecting every inch. Flip, check, flip again. The line behind Ava grew restless. A man sighed. A woman muttered. Ava's jaw tightened. "Is there a problem?" Her voice was steady, controlled. "No, just a routine check," Kara replied, tone clipped, fingers still gripping the document. A glance at a fellow attendant. A smirk exchanged. The silent message, "She's one of those." Ava had no proof, no tangible evidence, just the familiar sting of being singled out. She inhaled sharply. Not today, not this time. Ava stepped aside, heart pounding, watching the couple behind her breeze through. Kara's demeanor changed. Smile back in place, voice light, as if the last few minutes hadn't happened. The man handed over his passport. A glance, a nod, done. Ava felt her stomach twist. It wasn't subtle, it never was. The message was clear. They belong, you don't. She forced herself to stand still, to breathe. Reacting wouldn't change the outcome. It never did. But then Kara turned back to her, and Ava saw it, that flicker of something dangerous. And just like that, everything shifted. Ava extended her hand for her passport. Kara hesitated. It was barely a second, just a flicker of hesitation, but Ava caught it. Then, without a word, Kara slid the passport into her pocket. Ava's breath caught. Did that just happen? Kara moved on like nothing had changed. The next passenger stepped forward, oblivious. Ava's mind raced. Confront her? Demand answers? But then what? A scene? Security called? The usual script where she became the problem instead of the victim. Number? She had to be smart. Steadying herself, she forced her voice to stay calm. "I need my passport back." Kara didn't even blink. "I already gave it to you." Ava's stomach dropped. She had walked into a fight she hadn't seen coming. And this time, she wasn't sure how it would end. Ava exhaled, stepping toward the jet bridge, ready to leave this moment behind. Then Cara's voice sliced through the air. "Ma'am, your passport is missing." Loud, sharp, designed to draw attention. Ava stopped mid-step. The terminal fell into a hush as heads turned. Confusion. Judgment. Her breath caught as her hand instinctively went to her bag. She already knew it wasn't there. She knew exactly where it was, because she never lost it. Kara's expression was neutral, almost bored. "I checked everywhere," she added, voice carrying. "You must have dropped it." Ava's heart pounded. Passengers whispered. A child tugged on his mother's sleeve, asking what was wrong. A security officer appeared, stepping toward her with practiced authority. "Ma'am, we need to check your belongings." Ava forced herself to stand tall. She had fought 1,000 battles, but something told her. This one was different. 2 officers flanked Ava within seconds. "Are you sure you didn't misplace it?" one asked, already unzipping her carry-on. Ava's jaw clenched. "I know where I last saw it." "Ma'am, let's just take a look," the other interrupted, patting her down as passengers openly stared. She turned to Kara. "You just had it. You checked it twice." Kara folded her arms. "I don't recall that." Lies, so smooth, so practiced. Someone behind Ava murmured, "Always an issue with them." Them. The word rang in her ears. A security guard rummaged through her purse, shaking his head. "Nothing here," Ava inhaled sharply. "Because it's not there." A teenage girl clutched her mother's arm, staring. A businessman sighed in annoyance. Ava could feel it happening. The shift. She wasn't a passenger anymore. She was a problem. And problems got handled. "This is why we need stricter screening," a man muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. Ava stiffened. The words hit harder than she expected. As if she hadn't spent years proving herself. As if her existence alone was cause for suspicion. No one corrected him. No one spoke up. Not the elderly woman clutching her pearls. Not the mother distracting her child. Not the flight crew who had watched it all unfold. She wasn't surprised, just tired. This wasn't just a passport. This was her entire life, playing out in real time. And no one cared. Ava turned back to Kara. "Please, check again." Kara's eyes widened, a hand flying to her chest in exaggerated shock. "Are you accusing me of something?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Ava swallowed the frustration clawing at her throat. She knew this game. If she pushed too hard, she became the problem. "I'm just asking you to look," she said carefully. One of the officers scoffed. "Or maybe you lost it." Kara sighed dramatically. "Or maybe she's trying to make a scene." Ava's stomach dropped. That was the moment it shifted. The disbelief. The subtle shift from doubt to blame. Ava had seen cases unravel on less. "I just need my passport," she said, voice steady but strained. Kara smirked, but it was barely there. Ava had played defense long enough. It was time to fight back. A voice rang out. "I saw her throw it away." The terminal stilled. A young black woman stepped forward, phone in hand, eyes locked on Kara. Jasmine, late 20s, confidence, unshaken. The shift was immediate. Security hesitated. Passengers whispered. Kara's face paled. Ava met Jasmine's gaze. "You sure?" an officer asked, suddenly unsure. Jasmine nodded, tapping her screen. "I recorded it." Kara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Ava's pulse thundered. For the first time in this entire nightmare, the weight pressing on her chest lightened. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Jasmine didn't hesitate. She lifted her phone, her voice steady. "Everyone, watch this." A tap. The screen lit up. Kara's smirk flickered to life. A moment frozen in time. The deliberate flick of her wrist. The unmistakable motion of Ava's passport vanishing into the trash. A gasp rippled through the crowd. A man shifted uncomfortably. A mother pulled her child closer. Security faltered. The officers who had towered over Ava now exchanged uneasy glances. Ava's pulse thundered. She turned to Kara, whose face drained of color. Jasmine spoke again, firm. "You lied. You tried to ruin her." Kara opened her mouth, but no words came. For the first time since this nightmare began, Ava wasn't the one under scrutiny. Kara was, and everyone knew it. The murmurs grew louder, a wave of realization washing over the terminal. "I can't believe this," someone whispered. A businessman who had ignored Ava earlier now furrowed his brow, as if seeing the situation for the first time. A woman in first class shook her head. "Unacceptable," she muttered under her breath, though she had stayed silent when it mattered most. A teenage girl clutched her mother's arm. She was telling the truth the whole time. Ava's hands trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of knowing. This wasn't just about her. It was about every time this had happened before, and every time it would happen again. Kara swallowed hard, her confidence crumbling. "It was a mistake," she stammered, her voice thin. I didn't mean—" Jasmine folded her arms. "Didn't mean what? To throw it away? To humiliate her?" Kara's gaze darted to the security officers, searching for support. None came. The crowd's energy had shifted. The whispers weren't just whispers anymore. They were judgment, anger, disbelief. Ava inhaled deeply, watching Kara squirm. For once, the burden of proof wasn't on her, and Kara knew it. The sound of clicking heels cut through the murmurs, a voice, sharp and authoritative. "What is going on here?" The airline manager strode into the chaos, eyes flicking between Ava, Kara, and the phone screen still frozen on the damning footage. Kara stepped back, shrinking under his gaze. "Sir, He held up a hand. Not a word. Ava straightened. For the first time, someone in authority wasn't questioning her. They were questioning Kara. The security officers stiffened, awaiting orders. Passengers leaned in, waiting for a verdict. Kara, once so sure of herself, stood silent. The shift had begun. Justice was no longer out of reach. It was here. And Ava wasn't going to let it slip away. The manager places the passport in Ava's hand. "There, this was all a misunderstanding," he says, his tone clipped, rehearsed. Ava stares at the document. It's hers again, but at what cost? A rushed apology follows, hollow and mechanical, no real remorse, just an attempt to quiet the growing storm. The manager turns to Kara. "You're done. Clean out your locker." Kara's mouth opens, then shuts. "You can't," she starts, but the weight of the evidence silences her. Passengers whisper, security steps back. For once, the system works. But Ava knows the consequences aren't about justice, they're about optics. Jasmine's video spreads before Ava even boards. Twitter explodes. "This happens too often," one post reads. Stories pour in. People of color sharing eerily similar experiences. News outlets pick it up. The airline scrambles, issuing statements, damage control in overdrive. But it's too late. Kara isn't just an employee anymore. She's a symbol of a much deeper problem. Ava watches it unfold on her screen, a knot tightening in her chest. One voice became a movement, but movements don't end with a single post. They grow. And the fight is far from over. Ava steps onto the plane, passport secure, but something's different. She glances at the empty counter where Kara once stood. For the first time, she isn't just another traveler. She's proof that silence is never the answer. She takes her seat, knowing this is just the beginning. What if this had been you? What if your identity alone made you a suspect? Would you have spoken up? Or would you have stayed silent? Discrimination isn't just a story. It's reality for many. Have you faced injustice? Share your experience in the comments, like, subscribe, and let's keep exposing the truth together.